So, welcome everyone. Let us take a moment of silence before we start. Yeah, so let us start. I think we had finished page number 8 while the passage was still continuing. We had stopped here. I would suggest to have an overlap so that we have an idea what we are going towards, where we are coming from. So let us start from here, which we have already done, and then we will take up the new also, I think, in the same. So would anyone like to read it for all of us?
I can begin.
Okay, please go ahead.
If indeed our aim be only an escape from the world to God, synthesis is unnecessary and a waste of time. For then our sole practical aim must be to find out one path out of the thousand that lead to God, one shortest possible of shortcuts, and not to linger exploring different paths that end in the same goal. But if our aim be a transformation of our integral being into the terms of God existence, it is then that a synthesis becomes necessary. The method we have to pursue, then, is to put our whole conscious being into relation and contact with the Divine, and to call Him in to transform our entire being into His. The Divine and all-knowing and all-affecting descends upon the limited and obscure, progressively illumines and energizes the whole lower nature, and substitutes its own actions for all the terms of the inferior human light and mortal activity.
Yeah, thank you so much. So these passages, as we can see, are very rich. They're very like power packed, and in few lines, like 5, 4, 3 lines, Sri Aurobindo is just intensifying, in all richness, the purpose of human existence. So, since we had earlier shared that the task is not to leave the matter as it is, the worldly life as it is, and to go beyond the material life into some liberation, that is not the purpose. And hence, a synthesis is necessary. And then he talks about this step by step method of synthesis, how to then connect this illumination that we feel, or the realization that we may have. But when we are in matter, in material world, then we are as ignorant as we can be. So how to unite, how to unify? So he says the method we have to pursue then is to put our whole conscious being into relation and contact with the divine. And for many of us who may not resonate with the word divine, we can say maybe higher intelligence, something which knows more than me, which has a greater knowing. Or, as Mother says, in other words, you can use the word perfection. And we know in our own fields, whether we are a doctor or a musician or an artist or even a traveler on the life path, we know that perfection is something we can always move forward to. No matter how beautiful our creation or we ourselves become, we can never say that now my task is done. It's like over. At least now, at this stage of our human evolution, we can't say that I've reached it, because it, whatever beauty we may reach, whatever harmony we may reach, we still can say, oh, I can do better. We can improvise, we can again make so many improvisation that we can expand and expand and expand, and there is no end to that expansion and beauty and harmony. So whatever we become conscious of, since we can't do anything at the moment, he's talking about conscious being. So whatever we become, in slowly, in degrees, in capacities, whatever we become conscious of, oh, I didn't know I have that weakness. Oh, I didn't know that I am limited in my thought and opinion. Thanks for that person to point me out. No, I didn't know that I was again maybe sticking to my idea. I didn't know, all these things that kind of get revealed to us from time to time. The moment we become conscious of it, then we can put it in divine touch, or this light of the higher, that look, this is what I have found in me, and please, this belongs to you, and shed more light, and please illumine this part so that it becomes more beautiful, more harmonious. So this is like a step by step process. We all know, we have been, most of us have been consciously on the path for a long time, and we know that it seems like there is no end to this revelation. No matter if we 30, 40 years of walking on the path, we can see still there are parts of which we are not conscious about. We get stuck at many levels. So again, we have to get de-stuck or unstuck and walk forward. And whatever I got stuck to, I have to illumine it, I have to become conscious of it and offer it to the mother. Mother, it belongs to you, you shed your light, now I am aware of it. And mother would say to people who would, mother say that it's your, especially the unillumined part, that you need to become conscious of and then offer it, because if you show it to me, only then I can uh, shed the light on it. So, and mother also says that I know, somebody asked that, mother, you are antaryami, you are omniscient, you know everything, so why do I have to become conscious of it? Mother says, not about me knowing it, it's about you becoming, in gradations and capacities, conscious of little parts and pieces of your life. So it's for my illumination, since I am in ignorance, and I have to gradually rise to full consciousness. So each part, each being, each thought, each feeling, it has to like pass this light of consciousness. Is it worthy of keeping? Okay, something can be done. Offer it, show it to the mother. Do not follow then the dictate of that thought or feeling if it's ugly. So this is the method, he says in the first few lines. The method we have to pursue then is to put our whole conscious being in relation and contact with the divine, and to call him in to transform our entire being into his. I would take a pause here and I would say that in Mother's prayers and meditations, it's like these three lines are, we can see it, they are manifesting one by one, one by one. In every prayer, even if we randomly pick, and read a few, see, even if you randomly pick prayers and meditations and read any lines, you would see that Mother is exactly doing this sadhana for all of us, taking this human form. So March 1, 1914, it is, I'm just randomly picking up a page. It is in one's own self that all the obstacles lie. It is in one's own self that all the difficulties are found. It is in one's own self that there is all the darkness and ignorance. Were we to travel throughout the earth, were we to go and bury ourselves in some solitude, break with all our habits, lead the most ascetic life, yet if some bond of illusion held back our consciousness far from thy absolute consciousness, if some egoistic attachment cuts us off from the integral communion with thy divine love, this communion that Sri Aurobindo is talking of, we would be no nearer thee despite all outer circumstances. So I may be sitting right in the ashram, Pondicherry, Auroville, but if something is holding me back, I'm still attached and defending those attachments. Then still she says that if some egoistic attachment cuts us off from the integral communion with thy divine love, we would be no nearer thee despite all outer circumstances. And then she says, can any circumstances be considered more or less favorable? That I am in Pondicherry, that's more favorable. I'm outside Pondicherry, that's less favorable. Can you do that? Can you say that? Can any circumstance be considered more or less favorable? I doubt it. It is the idea we have about them which enables us to profit much or little by the lessons they give us. So the idea that, wow, I am in Pondicherry now, I am in a forest now, how beautiful I feel. So Mother says that it's the idea we have about them which enables us to profit much or little, because we know that the forest can be right in front of me, but if I'm lost, the forest is of no use. But if I have this, this looking forward to being in a forest or being next to a beach or ocean or something, or Pondicherry, for example, then it gives us a feeling that, wow, I'm getting something out of it. And then always in every prayer, she unites, she rests in the divine consciousness. So she says, O Lord, I implore thee, grant that I may be perfectly conscious. Again, this conscious being in relation and contact with the divine, what Sri Aurobindo was saying. Grant that I may be perfectly conscious and master of all that constitutes this personality. So again, Mother says, Sri Aurobindo was saying to put our whole conscious being into relation and contact with the divine. And here she says, I may be perfectly conscious and master of all that constitutes this personality, so that I may be delivered from myself, my little egoistic self, limited self, and thou alone mayest live and act through these multiple elements, thought, feeling, sensations, through all these multiple elements of the being. Only divine may work out. To live in love, by love, for love, indissolubly united to thy highest manifestation, the manifestation of love. And then she ends with, always more light, more beauty, more truth. And since we were saying that perfection is a road which can always go on and on and on. So always more light, more beauty, more truth. That's how we unite ourselves with the divine consciousness. So yeah, that was just a reflection of what Sri Aurobindo was sharing here. So anything on these first three lines that we shared?
Monica, there is a slight confusion in my understanding. So I just wanted to clarity, there is this line which says, uh, before this page, if indeed, if indeed our aim be only an escape from world to God. What does this mean? Escape from world to God.
Yeah.
Does it mean realizing God? Does it mean union with God, or does it mean something else? Because, well, how can that in itself, I feel is synthesis. It cannot happen. Can it happen any other way? So I'm not understanding this. Some clarity. You could explain that.
Actually, again, as Mother says that we have to be very cautious of reading Sri Aurobindo in bits and pieces. And that's what happens with us. So these are passages extracted from, for example, Life Divine, Synthesis of Yoga. And if we see there that he continues, and like pages, he's constituting something, and towards the end, he finally gives us his own synthesis. So this, I believe this is a reference to what in Life Divine or Synthesis of Yoga, he talks about life of an ascetic. He talks about refusal of the ascetic. So the ascetic paths that we have seen earlier in our ages that have gone before, the ascetic says that since this material is illusory, it can never be treated well, it always brings me down, let me rise up to the spirit, let me rise up to God's, the divine realization. So he does that. But Sri Aurobindo in Life Divine and Synthesis of Yoga, he says that the path of ascetic, what it does is that it's true that it's walking to the spirit or God realization, union with God, but the matter remains as such dark, ununified with God, ugly, and again what we say lower, the lower remains lower. So here he is referring to that refusal of the ascetic. That ascetic says, though I don't want to be in the world, I just want this union where I feel full illumination and I feel like really bliss. So he says that we are not going to do that. In integral yoga, we are not going to just use that path. We are going to make a synthesis. So he says, if indeed our aim be only an escape from the world, world means the manifestation, matter, form, body, thoughts, feelings, to God, synthesis is unnecessary. Then we don't even have to talk about it. Okay, go to a forest, go to a cave, find your nirvana, the divine realization, that's it. But then later he says, but if our aim be a transformation of our integral being, the integral being referring to the mind, the thoughts, the feelings, the desires, the sense perceptions of the body, ideas, opinions, all that he says, has to be turned to the divine, and not only the spirit realizing the divine. So, but if our aim be a transformation of our integral being, the whole multiple pieces of our being, into the terms of God existence, now he says it is then that a synthesis becomes necessary. So this is what he's referring to, that this escape that has been shown to us as path away from suffering, we are not going to talk about that path. We are not going to leave matter, thoughts and feelings unillumined. We are going to even work with that.
So Monica, when you say ascetic, you mean those people who do tapasya, but they are not the enlightened ones, because asceticism can also lead to enlightenment. And if there is enlightenment, then if it cannot happen without transformation of the being, because how else you are full of light, enlightened means that there is a transformation in every part of the being. Beautiful. And asceticism can take you there. Yes, there are many ascetics who probably are physically renouncing, but at the level of the mind, there is the internal relation is still not broken. So is it something that
yes. So as we were talking, as Sri Aurobindo says that even realizations, this unification with the divine, it goes on in degrees and steps. right? So at any level, we can get stabilized. And he is saying that we don't have to just get stuck at any level. Go forward. What you are saying, that if there is a true realization, and it is a really true realization, it can't leave matter as it is, right? But to realize that realization, we have to travel a lot, like it's a long distance. And at various stages, we can get stabilized. So for example, we talk of many many masters who have given us so much, but for example, we see that the body, the body did not get a divine realization. They didn't work on the physical transformation. They said, body to hai, and I am not the body, so leave the body as it is, right? But Sri Aurobindo and Mother take us forward. He say, yes, it is body, and we are also capable of invoking in the body a sense of immortality and divinity. है ना? So we can't say that these are not true realizations. They are realizations, but again, as we say, that there is no end to these realizations, and they provoke us and invoke us to go further, further and further. It should not be that, in my forest and solitude, I really feel blissed out, and it can happen. It can happen. But the moment I enter in the world of relations and job and workplace and all that, I can't operate.
So when I say that, I mean, I'm not talking about people who ascetics who are blissed out momentarily. I'm talking about being fixed in that state of bliss.
Even, for example, Ramana Maharishi, whatever little I can see here, I can share. Again, we can't see the whole picture. Many people would come from Ramana Maharishi's ashram to Pondicherry, to Mother and Sri Aurobindo. And there are many letters of Sri Aurobindo talking. Just a second, back. There are many letters where Sri Aurobindo talks about these enlightened masters, and they would say that if you want peace, you go to Ramana Maharishi. But here we are talking of transformation, integral transformation. So see, Ramana Maharishi has given so much. He's one of, even if whoever has read his words and understood even a bit, it's like really a great illumination that he has given us, quite a great liberation. But that's not the end. That's not the end. So he says that if you want peace, okay, go to Ramana's ashram. But if you want more than peace, progress at every level of the being, then you come to us. And many people, we have many examples. I think Kapali Shastri ji also went from Ramana Maharishi to Sri Aurobindo further. So it's like there is no end to the walking and the transformation. And they talk about the moving forward and not getting stuck. In Savitri, we have these examples where we see in gradations Ashupati, and even Savitri is promised, here you can have bliss, settle here with Satyavan. She says, no, my task is not this. I want this light for the earthly realm. I don't want to settle in just a bliss and a peace. So there it appears, again, I'm just talking of the little window that I can see. It appears that there are gradations, and we can get settled at any gradation. And each gradation has a right place. It's not that it's not serving the purpose. But Sri Aurobindo and Mother talk about the ultimate, moving towards even the physical transformation to divinity. That has never been talked of. So that's what I can see, the little here, and there must be more. And if you are interested, I think good idea to plunge into, say, Life Divine Synthesis of Yoga, because there he gives us the large picture, what's happening.
Yeah. Thank you, Monica.
Thank you. Yeah, anyone else?
Yeah, Monica, if I may. So basically, if we look at, the Vedantic way of approaching things that is like the base, right? That is considered the base of how one should go about whatever liberation or nirvana. So, again, with the limited understanding, it's like the body pulls you down and one has to rise above the body to attain nirvana, right? Like that was the main thing that moved beyond, like you said, there was nothing called physical transformation. It was like, okay, you are in the body and you are kind of just, there are illusions and attractions around you that are concerning with the body. So, towards the path of liberation, you have to shun the body and the spirit has to unite with the divine, right? With the God. You have to become that godliness was by realizing that the body is not it. It would not help me. So that was the original way of how it started, or that was our perception of what the Vedanta, the Vedas, the Upanishads, that's what they are kind of guiding towards. Go to who you are, go to who you are. You are not the body. So again, you know how Sri Aurobindo and Mother says that the same thing is the helper, the same thing is the bar. So at that time, it was needed because the body identification, the first step is to understand or to realize for oneself that yes, I am not the body, I have a body. But then, like you said, Sri Aurobindo for the first time incorporated the integral transformation. So that's what that the body cannot no longer, now we can say that, okay, it's not important for the, the new human, like the divine being to come, now the new race to come, the same material has to be divinized. So I guess that's what I understood. Okay, earlier on, that was what we were, that is what we thought is the way. And in that way, yes, you can have union with the divine. But if now the transformation needs to happen for the new race, or, for, I don't know what word to use, but that, then the body cannot no longer be just said, no, that just pulls me down and shunned and everything. It has to be transformed. Like, in asceticism, even in Buddhism, so in Buddha's life, we see now how he did the Hatha Yoga. What is Hatha Yoga? Again, kind of disregarding the body, that no, okay, it needs to be kind of shunned. And again, so just the same thing. And I think somebody has commented at Bodhicitta, right? Like I just saw that comment intimation come up, that exactly it's not just for me, it's for, so that's a different thing, but again related. It's not just about your liberation, because ultimately we all are one. And if I have to be fully there, everybody has to come with me. But here the reference I felt was from the old school of going towards it to Sri Aurobindo's new way, that that's not enough anymore. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Taru. Thank you.
Yes, I can I say something? Yes, I also, Mother says that even, and it's probably sometimes this happens, that you can go into samadhi or have an absorption, or a realization of the divine transcendent, and come back from that experience and have no transformation of your instrumental being. Mother says this, and I think it might be the case of many spiritual teachers that might have had some spiritual experience, even some deep experience, and then they are like, our neurotic can be abusive, or there are many cases like this. And I think it might be the case that not always having this experience of samadhi or absorption of the impersonal divine necessarily transform your being. And probably this is one of the reasons that the spiritual paths generally start with some stage of like a gradual teachings, going from a foundation of some moral things like yamas and niyamas, and going. The disciple is has to go through some purification of the gross aspects of himself, our neurosis, our you know, the gross aspects of our being, in order to go to the spiritual realizations, because there are many things I think can go wrong when you have the ego can take some of these realizations in order to aggrandize himself. There are many things that I think it's not necessarily that if you have a deep experience of the divine, you are gonna be transformed.
Yeah. Can you put your audio a bit closer, Yuan? Your audio is not very clear.
Okay.
It's understandable,
Okay.
but not that clear. Yeah.
Okay. I will. No, that's it.
Yeah. So just to repeat, I think what you were sharing is that uh, in samadhi we can have beautiful realizations, but that doesn't mean that when I act in the worldly scenario, that the same realization is there also in thinking, acting, feeling. Many a times that we see that there is a gulf in between, and even the body, as we were talking, that the physical is not transformed, even though I may have different kind of realizations. Yes. And I think that is one of the things that we feel uh, when, for example, those of us who may, they take their own time in meditation and solitude, have you seen that when we are with ourselves, we may have a very good time in our solitude, but the moment I interact in the worldly life with a person, either in my family or at workplace, or difficulties that happen in the outer situations, we get swayed. They overwhelm us many a times, and this is the gulf that has to be bridged. It is not, we cannot deny that we did not have a good experience. We did have a good experience, and as Sri Aurobindo says that there are gradations, so we can't, like, it's like a continuing journey of realizations. We can't say that it's not a true thing that I felt. Maybe something was there, that's why I felt some beauty, bliss and peace. But the moment I interact, since so many things have to be transformed in my being, there is so much ill will in me, there is so much still separate self, the ego consciousness comes up again and again. So all that as has to be turned to completely to divine's will. Each thought, each feeling, each idea, each sense perception, everything has to be turned to the divine. And it's a very good ground check for us, I believe. How am I in my day-to-day interactions? How easily I get frustrated, as in one of the verses that we were reading in Bodhisattva session, it was that the true accomplishment is a continuing decrease of disturbing emotions. So that's the check I have to do for my own self. And continuing decrease of wishes and wants, that all that we want is the divine will to be fulfilled through each action and happening in our life. And that takes time, because we think that we keep clinging to so many ideas in our head. This is how it should happen, that is how it should have happened, oh, this is not happening the right way. So we have so many ideas in our head that have to be surrendered to the divine will. And it's good for us to get grounded again and again in our failures and things that happen, become too overwhelming, to see that yet there is still a gulf between knowing and living. There is still a gulf, and that has to be bridged. Yeah. Yeah, anything more?
I think while we are trying to be on this path and the progress that we are making, like baby steps, I feel whatever again comes back to us, like you just said, no, that we uh, lose our calmness, or what we felt that we've achieved, that fortitude, and again those noises come back, and those confusions. But what I feel in my journey, like so far, is that yes, they do come back. Frequency is lesser, and also I feel grateful for them, because now when they come back, somehow I am able to apply to them. They come back to make me better on this path. That is what has been my experience. Yeah. And like I just wrote on the comment, uh, is it what Sri Aurobindo is saying is like the difference between, like just attaining nirvana and going beyond to become a bodhichitta? Is it what he's talking about?
Yeah, I think it's quite relatable what you are sharing, because he talks at one moment about attaining personal realization is a different thing which people have done, and as Taru was sharing, that it has a proper place in a human evolution. At that moment it was required that we have a few realized souls who tell us to go beyond the body, that we are not this body, as Taru was pointing at. So that was very relevant. And yet now we are at this juncture that only a few realized souls is not all that we need. We all need to become greater or lesser degree a bit enlightened. And bodhicitta, basically, what we understand, the little we understand from whatever texts and our own understandings, is that it is an illumined heart and mind. And you say that I will walk the path of enlightenment, not for my own liberation, but for the benefit of others.
Absolutely. So that is going beyond, right? Like
That's
I
going
am,
beyond.
yeah. So, like what he's saying is, one is you're escaping
Ah,
to reach God. That is
ah,
because by suffering and all, I don't want, and I'm trying to find an escape. And
ah.
the other is like trying to see God's being in you, and that is irrespective of the suffering. So,
Bilkul, bilkul. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. So when I'm walking the path of bodhisattva, or wanting to achieve bodhicitta, which is an illumined mind and heart, illumined with the divine light. So there I relate with the suffering of all of us who go through ego consciousness, and how much it makes us suffer. And why do I want to walk the path of enlightenment? Not because I want to personally get liberated, because through my pain and through others' pain, I now see the suffering. Oh my God, what nightmare we create for ourselves. That's why I want to walk the path. So the intention is very interesting. Intention is different. It is a larger intention. And we see that why we act in this small petty ways, because we are ignorant of who we truly are. So we see that pain. We also connect with our pain, how ignorantly we act when we are in our ego consciousness, and how much it makes us suffer and the others suffer around us. And this is the very reason, because I am sensitive to this pain and suffering. That's why I want to walk this path. That's why I want to unite myself in whatever degree, for the benefit of me and for the benefit of others. So we are walking hand in hand with the others also who are on the same ground. And we are not wanting to do only for myself. So yeah, that's what I understand. And this itself, actually, in one way, if we look at it just a little one way. If we look at it, this itself, this shift from not wanting for my own self, but wanting for all of us, this shift itself is a kind of a little liberation from the egoistic self. And as Sri Aurobindo says, that nirvana is the first step. Somewhere he says, I have this line, remember this line, nirvana is the first step in integral yoga. So it's a kind of a little shift from my egoistic state already, that I embark upon the path further. That I say, no, 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 I see the suffering, and we can't leave the suffering like this. We have to do something about it. So we begin to walk the path. And when we are having this intention in us, we have shifted from our little egoistic self, which is full of demands, desires, and my needs, my fulfillments, my liberation. We have shifted from that state to wanting for all. So it's a kind of a little liberation in itself. The intention has changed.
Hey, I have a question there.
Yes, Claudia.
I hear a teacher, I don't know if you know him, Francis Lucille, that he was telling that, I think you are speaking about passion.
Sorry, say it again.
So he was telling that, I'm thinking that you are speaking about compassion, yes? And so Francis Lucille was telling that one cannot have compassion if one cannot experience the joy of others. Yes, like when others are happy and living in a very beautiful moments, if you cannot relate to that joy, you cannot have compassion, because compassion begins for all kind of states of human beings. Yes, it's not only when human beings are suffering. But for me, it's like, well, passion, because when I see someone having this kind of joy of drinking or have a lot of pleasures or what in excess, I just go to the opposite and I say, oh, they should die, everybody, yes.
I think there was some issue with the net. She may join again. Anyone else in the meantime? Anything more to share? Okay. So in the meantime, when Claudia joins back again, let us continue. The method we have to pursue then is to put our whole conscious being into relation and contact with the divine. So it also means that whenever my ugliness arises within, there is a light that sees it as ugly and it doesn't want to defend it anymore. We have done that enough. So now I want to transform it. That's why I would offer it to the mother. Yeah, I think Claudia, yeah, disconnected. So something in me would now not be defending my own stupidities, one can say. Only then I can put them in front of the mother and say, please look at it. I don't know what to do with it. I've followed the dictates enough of something disturbing, which may be greed, desire, lust, attachment, everything that disturbs us basically, which is not true to our nature. So this has to be done, and to call him in, to have the higher light in, to transform our entire being to his. So complete abandonment, as in many sessions we have shared that how this example of how a kitten is carried by the cat mother. complete abandonment. So no need of too much manipulations in the head. And to call him in to transform our entire being into his. As mother says, now dropping away of likings, preferences, this is what I want, this is what I know not want. So whatever comes in front, doing it as a servitude and offering all the works, action and thoughts and feelings to the divine. The divine and all knowing and all effecting descends upon the limited when there is a call from us, a call from the lower, that please, help me and look at it, what I am struggling with. When there is an aspiration which goes upward, the divine and all knowing and all effecting descends upon the limited and obscure and progressively illumines and energizes the whole lower nature and substitutes its own action, the divine action, for all the terms of the inferior human light and mortal activity. Now, in this, we don't have to do anything more than an aspiration being there that yes, I have lived this ugly and weak life enough, very limited, very suffocated, running after one desire after another. I have lived that enough. It's not that I have not tasted it, but now I want to walk a new path. So an aspiration goes upward and the light of consciousness is in me. Why would the aspiration go upward? Because there is something in me which I see, which is dark and full of ugliness. It's not beautiful. So the light of divine consciousness, which is with me all the time, with that I become capable to look at it. I look at it, and as mother says, with the forceps you prick it out and you show it to the higher light. And when we show it truly to the higher light, that we don't have to do now any following of the dictates of this lower that is still there hiding in me from time to time. We don't follow the dictates, we show it to the higher, and now it's the higher's job to do the transformation. So what is said? The divine and all knowing and all effecting, which has all powerful, this force, the all knowing force, it descends upon the limited. The inverted triangle we have in Sri Aurobindo's symbol, and on the limited and obscure, progressively in stages, as we become capable, so is revealed to us. In progressive stages, illumines and energizes. Why illumines and energizes? Because consciousness is at once force also. Chit Shakti. Consciousness is coupled with energy and force. So the moment it illumines the light of consciousness, it also empowers. So we feel an empowerment when we have these true illuminations. Progressively illumines and energizes the whole lower nature and substitutes its own divine action for all the terms of the inferior human life, which is, inferior human light is our half-lit mind, which only understands in bits and pieces. So that now can go aside. It's not required. An empty, still mind can receive the higher knowledge with which it can get illumined and also energized, full of this enthusiasm for giving our life to the divine. All the terms of the inferior human life, light and mortal activity. So whatever little trivia that we keep engaging in, it transforms that trivia completely once we recognize that as trivia. I think that is very important, because free will comes in picture. That if right now I don't want to recognize it as trivia and it is important for me, okay, run after whatever we think is important. Even that is serving some purpose. The divine only knows. Each mistake has a purpose, each error has a purpose. So if there is something more important in my life than turning fully to divine, I must run after that. Just complete my passion or zeal or whatever sticking I have to that thing, run after it. And then slowly, whenever I become ready and recognize anything in my life that this now is not benefiting me, it is hanging still, but now I don't want to follow its dictates. then we can offer it to the higher light and it does its job. It's like mother does the yoga for us. So show it to the mother, don't act according to the lower dictate, and mother will do the job. The sadhana is happening. Yeah, anything here, anyone?
For me, the key word is indeed progressively, because that's such a personal truth. And I feel, yeah, the divine grace really adds up for my receptivity, my readiness. And there I'm still attached to my lower nature, like I'm unable to shift it. And there are times like I really feel energized because I show receptivity, I show readiness. So it's so progressive.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I just want to say that, when I talk to people, when I see my own life and the life of, I don't know, friends and family, it's very apparent that we all have a unique, I'm sorry, something happened. We all have our unique situations. I mean, situations that seem unique, that just have tied us up, right? Like, we all have certain things that we are sticking to, certain people, certain situations, certain issues, like from maybe could even be childhood, right? Like, again, something happened to me when I was 4, and I'm maybe 40, and still that pains me like it happened to me yesterday. So when we say trivia, when we say the useless, when we say the unnecessary, I think it's really important to sit with oneself and see what am I occupied with on a daily basis. Like, sometimes it feels that something big needs to be offered. Some, right? But it's really the small that, okay, maybe there is some person, one person that just annoys me, for example, or, or I'm very concerned about, say, a child, right? And I'm just obsessing and obsessing. Like, if I look at my thoughts, even for maybe 2 to 3 minutes sincerely, I'll see that obsession, because again and again, if I sit for those 2 minutes, I'll see the same thought is coming, and it's true for everybody almost. So just to see that I have obsessed so much, what, again, seems like we're just repeating things, but what has it got me, right? Like, nothing seems to be changing. I mean, and whatever is changing is not worth the energy and the time. I mean, is it worth my life to be sitting here and wondering कि इसका क्या होगा? Like, what will happen to him? And all, again, sometimes it feels like you're not caring. But what is, how I think we need to question these things, that what is responsibility? Is that really my responsibility? What is caring? What is compassion? When Claudia shared that compassion is to also feel joy in the joy of others, that was again a very beautiful window, because I have always seen compassion mostly as, feeling the pain of others. Like, I say I am intelligent, but doesn't seem like it at all. Like JTP also says, right? That everything I need to make myself clear that, do you see this? Is this working? Are you sure? Like a child, because I don't know, there are so many sticky points, so many slippery slopes, and so much ignorance. But again, the small things I'm just repeating that I feel obsessed about, or my mind again and again goes, those are the very things that must be, when they say put light on and offer that, mother, what do I do? I keep thinking about, that expectation, that demand, that duty, that responsibility. How do I rise above that? Because that limits me for years and years and lifetimes. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Claudia, you want to share what you were sharing, continuing, but you got disconnected?
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I would just have this like question, yes, like how I can be, I mean, you have to be compassionate towards the joyful, yes, towards the one that have all the richness of the world, also all the, I mean, you have to be compassionate towards the one that is having all the joy in the heart, you know, towards the one that is awake, you know, the one that is not awake. I mean, it's just like sometimes I feel like towards the one that have a lot of passions, you know. I mean, I don't know that. I don't know how to do that. You know, it's like very hard, and I just like have this sticky point also that where I say, oh, yes, sure, I just don't even have compassion towards me. You know, I don't know how. You know, I just sometimes feel lost in that. Yes.
You know, the moment I'm feeling lost, there becoming conscious, we have one tool that can really work. In moments of confusion, now I'm not able to have compassion. I don't know how to have compassion towards my own self. And again, using that particular raw material on the path. And as Taru was sharing that each little things in our life, nothing big, we have to become conscious of. So when in that moment, when I'm feeling this confusion that I don't even know how to be compassionate to myself, how can I imagine about being compassionate to this, that, and that situation? In that situation, connecting with my confusion, just like that, I suffer and I go through this inner turmoil of not even knowing how to be compassionate to myself. That's how so many of us are in the same situation. So many of us, they want to be compassionate. It's not that they don't know how. And the moment you do this, you see the shift that happens. Taking in their suffering, just like I suffer, just like I go through this turmoil of being confused what to do in this situation. Taking in all that confusion, so many of me suffering like exactly this, like how I undergo this turmoil. Taking in their pain in that moment, may they have, and with the out breath, may they have the simplicity and joy of the present moment. How simple. And in that moment, actually, you have done two things, if you realize. The thing I was struggling with, not being compassionate to myself, that also gets taken care of in this little 2 seconds of practice. Because I was struggling with, I don't know how to be compassionate to myself. And I don't know whether I do it or not. But in that moment where I connect deeply with all the pain people go through when they don't know how to be compassionate with themselves, now I know how they suffer. Now I know their suffering. So in that moment, a shift happens. And it's amazing that it doesn't take much time. It takes only maybe maximum 2 minutes of us. And that's it. And that's how we can bring everything on the path. Even that confusion can be the raw material on the path. So nothing goes waste. It's like a continuous recycling going on. You know, how we keep on making compost out of peels of vegetables and all that. Nothing goes waste. Yeah.
Thank you. That is
I
very
do have
beautiful.
I have a
Yes.
small note here, again from my own self, that if I recognize something in me, say if I recognize that I am not compassionate, my natural tendency or habitual tendency is to kind of go down in it, as in, oh no, my life, what have I done? Like, I feel guilt, I feel helpless, I feel that, I've done something bad, I don't know how to live life. It's like it goes into, it takes me down, rather than me realizing that, okay, I think I have not done a very good job of it till now, but now that I recognize it, I say, okay, now how do I do it, right? I start incorporating certain things to put it in my life. So in the sense, I get a situation and I have two choices: go down in it or rise in it. So just pointing to this habit of mine to kind of take that thing also as a rasa to take me down, or actually using this as a, okay, this is what I see now. I didn't see it before, or I saw it and I chose to ignore it, but now I see it. And if I don't want to ignore it anymore, okay, these are the things maybe I can start with. And like you mentioned, the practice of Tonglen, I mean, that's again, can't beyond words, can't say. I mean, there, and again, small things, small gestures that, like, you often say that if you see somebody struggling or say even homeless on the road, right? To give a little rather than questioning that what is it leading to or what will they use it for. Do your little bit, whatever you can. So these small things can take us beyond that state that, oh, and I don't know how to. Thank you.
Just a small thing that I wanted to add, that a simple practice of practicing gratitude. Uh, there's so many times when we are not, when we have so many complaints about our lives, about ourselves, about our surroundings. But if you could take out some moment and if it put it into our practice to note down physically, starting from there, that just even one thing that we are thankful of every day, this simple practice of gratitude automatically is one of the tools that helps in bringing about, at least initiating that shift. And it is very empowering. So I just wanted to add this. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Priyanka and Tarun. Yeah. Yeah, anything, any last comments, anyone?
Um, Not exactly related to this, Monica, but just a question came to my mind. What is the difference between prayer and meditation? Are they interrelated? I mean, if I'm talking about Tonglen, so it's a technique, we practice Tonglen, but it's also a prayer, right? I'm a little confused if it can be, if prayer and meditation are interrelated and or how do they differ?
You are asking if prayer and meditation are connected or different? That's your question?
Can they be same? Like like if I'm praying, uh, is it not like if I'm praying for compassion prayer and a compassion meditation, which is Tonglen for me? Somehow, like with my little knowledge, what I try to practice, I feel it's more of a prayer, and it's kind of a technique also, meditation technique. So for me, it becomes a prayer. So I wanted to know, is there a difference between, like when we say mother's prayers and meditation,
Hmm.
it's a combination, right? So is there a difference between prayer and meditation, or it can be used, it can be interchangeably used?
Yeah, actually, my mind gets really boggled. So the thing that comes up here for me when you ask this question is, why would I want to know whether there is a difference or not?
Yeah,
Whatever
true.
works,
Yeah.
whatever takes us forward, as Taru was
Yeah.
sharing, whatever expands me, takes me forward.
True. So I'll tell you why. Like on Friday, we had a session in school with a Buddhist monk.
Mm-hmm.
So there, like we were talking about compassion, and like when we were there were questions on like ways of compassion. So I did say that like I try to practice Tonglen. So he told me that Tonglen is not a prayer; it's a meditation. So that made me wonder that, and then I also googled. So it says Tonglen is a meditation technique. But for me personally, the way like I didn't know these technical names, or I had not checked Google. What I have learned from you, and the way I practice it, it's a prayer for me. So that is why this question,
Very confusing domain. I would not suggest to look it up, and I would neither suggest to get lost in the definitions, because definitions come later. First comes the experience.
Hmm.
So I would say go with your practical experience and forget about definitions, whether it is called prayer in one language or meditation in one language or Tonglen in another. How does it matter? It's taking me forward. I would stay
That's
with
true.
that. Personally, I would stay with that, especially because I feel I don't have the gray matter to go into definitions.
Yeah,
But yeah, please, if others have reflections, please go forward. Thanks, Shweta. Yeah, anyone? Anything on this?
I think prayer is also a tool to become meditative. And to be meditative is to be in the moment, to be aware, fully aware. So if it all depends, it's all the story, inside story. So one can be closing one's eyes, praying, and yet the mind might be wandering. And even if the mind is wandering, if you realize that it is wandering, you have started to meditate, because you then tend to bring it back to the prayer. So yeah, because again getting puzzled with the definitions and all that, and I too have a very little knowledge. So but this little thing that I understand from my perspective, I just thought of sharing. So these are all tools of connecting with self and being in the moment. So if even in the prayer
absolutely.
we are fully conscious of our own prayer, then I think we are meditating.
Yeah, true. Thanks. Also, I felt the same. Yeah.
Yeah, Taru, you wanted to share something?
Yeah, I think again, I would not let anybody doubt me, right? Like, not in an arrogant way, but if I'm feeling something, I mean, like you said, like, why would I listen to even a Buddhist monk? I mean, he would be great with what he's doing, but if I can, if something is true for me right now, and not again in an arrogant way, I would not doubt that. That again would be doubting my self love kind of there, that I have to honor myself, that I feel it's a prayer for me. That's great. And secondly, here, I don't know, I see some trick also of the mind, that sometimes when I'm introduced to something that kind of again breaks something else in me, something new, my mind also has the capacity to say that nahi, nahi, ye wahi to hai. Like say if I'm praying, prayer could be a bit more passive, and Tonglen could be a bit more, okay, now I have to connect and let me see, let me connect with the others who also have that. So, ऐसा लगता है same ही तो हो रहा है, छोड़ो. But considering right now, I do need practices. I do need these initiatives of connections. I must try it the way it is said, because, again, it's not you. I don't know. I mean, it's really, I would say, uh, masters, right? Like really amazing masters and mystics who have given such practices, and there are not many. I mean, there would be many, but something so simple, the mind could just trick me and say, oh, I already do it. So I don't need to follow what it says. So just saying that I would say just try it if one hasn't. I'm not saying like for Shweta that you haven't, followed it how it's being said, but let's just see it and say, okay, yeah, but I feel the same way. I'm doing that, and that's great. But just don't reject it or categorize it and not even try it, because it is beautiful. It does do something which a lot other things are unable to do, right? Seeing the black pearl, and I mean, again, sorry, not going into big words, but that's it. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Tanvi.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. So I think trusting, as we were talking about, trusting our experiences and honoring our experiences. And of course, there are infinite, as the divine is infinite, there are infinite possibilities also. And things may work in what ways we don't know. Something may work from someone else. As Sri Aurobindo says that in integral yoga, everyone has its own unique path, which has to be honored. So, not to get into the confusion of the mind, because the limited mind will bring confusions from time to time. So, this limited mind, which understands through sense perceptions, my opinions, ideas, what do I think of it? It is bound to bring more confusions because it has limited. It's not the higher knowledge. It's not the true large picture. So, again and again, aligning ourselves inwardly, that in order to, yeah, thanks, Claudia, in order to have this larger picture and greater illumination, let me silence my mind, as Sri Aurobindo says. When we still the mind, when we make it, even in Savitri we were reading, then in the thoughts blank vacancy, the higher knowledge dawns. And then we don't need to ask actually anyone. I remember once, it was very recent only. Yeah, I had met someone in a cafe, and that guy just came over up to our desk and he started talking, and he was talking really good stuff. And after talking for about say 30-40 minutes, he asked, so me and a friend, we were both sitting, he asked, okay, now I have talked with you for this much of time, give me a feedback about me. And I was like, with wide eyes open, like, why do you give me such power to give you that feedback, and why do you allow others to judge you and go by your experiences? Whatever benefits you, you do, take this ahead in your journey. Whatever is not benefiting you, you drop it. So be very selfish in that regard, that whatever not, as Taru is pointing at self love, loving myself in a way that, okay, this is taking me towards progress, I'm going to take this forward, and whatever is burdening me, I'm going to leave it. So where is this point? Why do I give power to others, was the question. And the moment I shared with him, then don't give me or anyone, because I also have a very limited window to judge you where you are and what is your realization, and what are you talking. So whatever I will say it from a very limited window. That's what I told him. So why do you want to take that limited window? And the moment I said that, I felt that it kind of brought him, okay, I don't have to worry about it, whatever is the feedback, because he was sharing that I feel so insecure. I've come from a little town, and now in this big town and big job and all that, I feel very insecure. What are people thinking about me? And what is my self image? I am myself thinking about my own self all the time. So all this insecurities, his mind was full, and he was again giving me the power that, okay, what do you think about me? And it's not that we didn't talk about all that, we did. And but I feel that the more we enter this domain of limited sense mind, we get confused and entangled, because it can never give us the true picture. So why not use the same energy, as we talk again and again, to tame the mind, to bring it to one pointed attention, either with a name or with the breath, very simply abandoning all thoughts for that moment, abandoning everything, just bringing it to a single pointed blank vacancy, so that we have truer insights and truer realizations, using that power in empowering ourselves rather than giving it away. And knowing that we all have the key, we all have the key, we just have to look for it. And from time to time we keep on looking at it, look for it, but then we get distracted, something comes up, we get distracted. So keep looking. We do find things from time to time. So to keep digging within and keep centering and taming the mind, not getting entangled in the forest of thought again and again. And even when thoughts come, as we were discussing, turning all the thoughts to the divine, all the feelings to the divine. Let him take care of this instrument. So this taming is where I can put my energies constructively, rather than getting in the, really, it's so confusing. Otherwise it's so confusing, all these definitions and all that. And definitions keep on changing, that too.
I think the essence of life is so much beyond labels.
True, very true, very true. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you. So before we just get out of the Zoom session, let us take few seconds to share the merit with all of us, even those who are not attending, all the beings. Let us share this virtue and merit with everyone. May everyone experience the joy of peace and progress. May everyone experience a deeper and higher and greater illumination. May everyone feel empowered and king of their being. Yeah, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you.